Kuteming his Lieutenant Odinga gets VVIP treatment. It's all about politics. That story, you can actually follow it on page 4 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, Reprieve Azarunga reunited with daughters after parole. You've been following this story. It says here former television presenter Esther Arunga was yesterday reunited with her 2 daughters after 5 years of separation as the murder trial of her husband dragged on. Ms. Arunga was released immediately after being handed a 10-month prison sentence at a court in Queensland, Australia, following her conviction as an accessory to the murder of her, or I should say her then 3-year-old son, Sinclair, in June 2014. You can follow this story on page 9 of the Daily Nation today. And here is a court battle. The young family was separated when the 2 girls, then aged, I should say, 2 years and 6 months, were taken to foster care as police investigated their parents over their elder brother's death. The judge concluded that Ms. Arunga's cultural beliefs played a factor in her lies to investigators that she had suffered a great deal since her son's tragic death. That story, as I've mentioned, you have it on page 9 of the Daily Nation this morning. So, there you go. Also, we have a sidebar story there. First steps to national referendum. Former presidential candidate Aukot's bill gets the nod of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, paving the way for instituting steps towards constitutional reforms. That is a story that you want to follow on page 5 of Daily Nation this morning. Also remember, every Friday you have the Network magazine coming in handy for you. You can also just get a copy of the Pullout magazine inside the Daily Nation today. The Standard is holding this flash for us. Uhuru warning on letter as the DCI starts probe. That is what we have on the front page of the Standard this morning. Uhuru warning on letter as the DCI starts probe. Of course, this is all about that particular contentious fake letter, apparently. There's a mysterious letter there. Attorney General denies receiving a letter Senate had cited in petition challenging 24 laws National Assembly has passed to its exclusion. And we had also the Chief of Staff from State House. This is Nzioka Waita saying, quote unquote, the letter is not from the office of the President, plain and simple. And any person or persons wishing to depend on the contents of a letter that has been authored on a forged letterhead of a non-existent office does so at their own peril. You can follow the story on page 6 of the Standard this morning, and you can see this is how they were marching yesterday. Senators marched along Kenyatta Avenue on the way to Milimani Law Courts yesterday. Still on the front page of the Daily Nation, of the Standard, I should say, senators fold CS Matiang'i in row with betting firms. Gaming companies accuse interior CS of misusing powers by shutting them down and deporting their foreign directors. Also, new rules to unmask faceless companies' beneficiaries. Right. It says here firms will now be required to reveal personal details of individuals or owners with voting rights or at least 10% stake. Follow that story on page 34 of the Standard today. The Star is up next, and this is your splash today. NYS boss taken to City Hospital after cup of tea. NYS boss taken to City Hospital after cup of tea. Director General says work of reform is being impeded by graft cartels that still operate inside the National Youth Service. Right, Youth Service has been hit twice by mega scandals, and it seems also the DG is a key target. NYS boss taken to City Hospital after a cup of tea. That is what is on the front page of the Star today. Also, Sonko Mutua close supermarket butcheries, and this is following, of course, the expose on contaminated meat. Red alert, customers buy meat at the famous Kimaiko Got Meat in Huruma, Nairobi. That is the caption reading there of this particular picture on the front page of the Star. Also, IBC approves Aukot's bill, starts referendum push. The IBC has okayed more than 1 million signatures to amend the constitution to reduce the number of MPs and ease the burden of taxpayers. The Punguza Mizigo campaign by the Third Way Alliance Party, led by Ekuru Aukot, submitted the signatures to the IBC in February last year for verification. Follow the story on page 2 of the Star. Also, court to rule on senators' MPs' supremacy war. The unending supremacy battle between the Senate and the National Assembly that threatens to paralyze operations in counties will now be decided in the corridors of justice. In what is promising to be a titanic legal duel, senators, I should say, moved to court seeking to overturn 24 laws enacted by the National Assembly without their input. Also, VCs, dons oppose Magoha plans to merge universities. Education Ministry plans to merge public universities in a restructuring of the sector and are facing resistance from managers and unions. CS George Magoha's directive that Vice Chancellors submit a report by June 30th on the best way to approach the mergers was not honored. Follow the story on page 10 of the Star this morning. Let's see what the People Daily also is holding for us today. And this is your splash. Just move on quickly over there so that I can get you now to the main. That is the headline today. Puzzle of case judges love to pass on. That is what is on the front page of the People Daily. Slow justice. Over 120 days after Sonko's killing, not really Sonko, over 120 days after San's killing, at least 3 justices and 4 magistrates later, trial of city lawyer Nyakundi yet to take off amid multiple applications. This is a story on the front page of the People Daily this morning. Follow the story on page 6. Also, IBC gives referendum bill a nod. That story continues on page 7 of the People Daily. High Court to unlock county laws standoff. Justice Weldon Korir says petition filed by Upper House legislators raises strong and substantive questions of law. That story is tucked away on page 2 of the People Daily. Also on top here, Arunga penalty too lenient. This is according to mother-in-law. Arunga penalty too lenient. That is what the mother-in-law she's saying. And this story continues on page 12 of the People Daily this morning. Let's move on and see what also we have on the front page of Taifa Leo. And this is what you're waking up to. Fujo serikalini is a splash. Mizozo katika serikali kuu, bunge, seneti, magavana yazidi na kutishia kulemaza miradi, uchumi na huduma. That is a story that also continues on page 2 of Taifa Leo today. Also, MCAs sasa kupewa kazi ya kuamua iwapo referenda itafanyika. Of course, that is following the approval of the, napunguza mizigo signatures by IBC. You can follow the story on page 2 of Taifa Leo. And wafuasi wa Ruto magharibi sasa waimba wimbo mpya. You can find out what this new song is all about on page 3 of Taifa Leo this morning. We buckle down to business and also see what the Business Daily is holding for us. And this is your splash this morning on the front page of the Business Daily. 1.5 trillion shillings bank loans pile pressure on Treasury. Global credit ratings agency Moody's warns that high appetite for debt has left the economy at the mercy of financial sharks. That is what we have on the front page of the Business Daily. The sharp increase in the Treasury's borrowing from local banks has exposed the economy to shocks in the financial sector. Analysts at global ratings agency Moody's have warned. Commercial banks have in the past 3 years amassed 1.5 trillion shillings worth of Treasury bills and bonds, equivalent to 54.1% of the government's total domestic debt, which stood at 2.789 trillion shillings at the end of last week. You can follow this story on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. And you can see also an insert there of Moody's Vice President Christos Theophilou. Power for Jobs is another standalone picture here. And we can see African Union High Representative for Infrastructure Development, Raila Odinga, with Strathmore University's Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research and Innovation, Professor Isael Pereira da Silva, And Vice Chancellor Designate, that is Dr. Vincent Ogut, during the Energy Access Workforce National Roundtable at the institution yesterday. That is what we have here on the front page of the Business Daily this morning. Also, IRM Cement former CEO stops 5 billion shillings sale to Devki. The sale of Kenyan operations of ARM Cement has been stopped temporarily after the company's former chief executive, Pradeep Paunrana, went to court challenging the transfer of the assets to rival firm National Cement. Lawyers acting for Mr. Paunrana said, or who is also a significant shareholder in the Nairobi Securities Exchange listed firm, have filed a petition before the High Court. And you can follow this story on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. We have a cyber story, and Turukana wind plant saves power users 8 billion shillings fuel charges is a story that you want to follow also on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. And looking on the ticker there, License Hitch hits affordable homes mortgage firm. License Hitch has delayed the takeoff of state-backed firm that was meant to boost access of cheaper mortgage through making it easier for banks to access long-term finance for home loans. This story continues on page 6 of the Business Daily. Today's digit is 337 billion shillings. That is the amount of non-performing loans in May, a three-year high from 24 billion shillings in 2016. Also, sugar imports up 102%. In H1, sugar imports grew 102% in the first half of this year compared with the same period of last year, causing the ex-factory price of the sweetener to fall marginally. That story continues on page 19 of the Business Daily this morning. Now, let's cross borders now and head over now to Tanzania and pick up the Citizen. This is today's paper. World Bank government differ on economic growth figures. The National Bureau of Statistics fiercely opposes Bretton Woods Institution's new report, showing that Tanzania's economy expanded by 5.2% in 2018. And the story continues on page 2. Also, these are the figures: 5.2% Tanzania's economic growth in 2018, as I've read there, according to the World Bank's Tanzania Economic Update. Tanzania's economic growth in 2018, according to official government statistics, is 7%. So there is a contention. Also, 3 more new aircraft coming, Magufuli reveals. President John Magufuli yesterday said the government will purchase 3 more aircraft for the national carrier Air Tanzania Company Limited. Dr. Magufuli made the revelation in Congo District, Dodoma region, at a public rally on his way back to Dar es Salaam from his hometown Chato, where he had gone for a break. And Tanzania-Uganda meeting in the pipeline. That is a story that you want to follow on page 3. And Work, Transport and Communication Minister Isaac Kamwele can be seen here cutting the ribbon shortly after Air Tanzania Company Limited Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner landed at, that is, let me just try and read this. This is Chhatrapati Shivaji International Airport in Mumbai, India yesterday. You can follow the story. This is actually a related story for the headline on the front page of the Citizen. And new incentives for pharmaceutical investors. This is a story you can follow on page 2 of the Citizen this morning. Still in Tanzania, we have Mwananchi for you. IGP Siro atoa kauli polisi kuzuia mikutano ya wapinzani. That is what is headline on the front page of Mwananchi. Also, John Pombe Magufuli: nisingependa kuongoza watu wenye machozi. That is what he said. And Benki ya Dunia, NBS, yatafautiana hoja ya ukuaji wa uchumi. The story continues on page 4 of the Mwananchi in Tanzania. In Uganda, we have the Daily Monitor, and this is what you're waking up to. Is Museveni 10-point crime plan working? That is their biting questions. The question splashed on the front page of the Daily Monitor today is all about stock taking. President Museveni in June last year announced a 10-point strategy to tame the rising wave of violent crime. Now, 1 year later, we review each of the strategies. You can follow all these reviews on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Monitor. And we can see him here, that is President Museveni, It's all about wealth drive, present to replace slow investor. And we can see him actually swinging a rowing paddle presented to him by Nakasongola district leaders during the Wealth Creation Tour at Ngoma, Nakesere district on Wednesday. Mr. Museveni said he will review the operations of a Turkish firm that has delayed to establish an industrial park in Nakaseke to benefit the people of Great Luero. ASB group of companies in 2014 signed an agreement with government to start an apiary farm, textile industry, food growing, production of medicine and aromatic products in Kaweweta village in Kinyogoga sub-county, Nakaseke. You can follow that story also inside the Daily Monitor if you were in Uganda today. Also, government plans to build 10 expressways around the city, and former IGP Kisembo is dead. This story continues on page 3 of the Daily Monitor. And Ginger Road repairs, the option to use as works starts. You can find all that on page 8 of the Daily Monitor if you're waking up in Uganda. Let's cross over now to Rwanda and see what the New Times is holding for us. Prosecutor, we have intel on Kabuga and co-accused. We have intel on Kabuga and co-accused. Remember, Felician Kabuga was, or people are believing that actually he's living in Kenya. The prosecutor for the International Residual Mechanism for the Criminal Tribunals, this is Sarge Bramatz, said his office has credible intelligence on the whereabouts of several of the 8 Rwandan genocide fugitives indicted by the court. The mechanism took over from the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, established by the UN to try masterminds of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis. You can follow the story on page 8 of the New Times. World Health Organization declares DR Congo Ebola crisis public health emergency. You can follow the story on page 5. And this is Expo 2019. Visitors to buy tickets using mobile money. And we can see exhibitors putting out final touches to their stalls in preparation of the 22nd Rwanda International Trade Fair, scheduled to open on July the 22nd at Gikondo Showgrounds. Over 450 exhibitors from 25 countries are expected. Follow the story on page 8 of the New Times in Rwanda. Lastly, I should show you also what the headline has been on the front page of the East African this week. If you haven't grabbed your copy yet, this is the East African. Uhuru Power Solution, dire gas to seal legacy, cheap alternative. Tanzania's natural gas could drive industrialization as Lamu coal plant falters. That is what we have on the front page of the East African. Also, Western years, no joy in Juba on 8th anniversary. Africa's youngest state, South Sudan, this past week marked the 8th independence anniversary without national celebrations, further casting doubt on the prospects of lasting peace and an economic turnaround. South Sudan watchers say the conditions in Juba may not allow the formation of a cohesive transitional government by November as envisaged. But nobody captured the mounting state of despair among the South Sudanese better than President Salva Kiir. In a live address to the nation broadcast on radio and television, the president regretted that this was the first time that the South Sudanese observed rather than conducted full celebrations of independence. You have a story continuing on page 5 of the East African this week. Also, EU rejects Kenya plan on trade agreement. Europe says it will only sign EPA with a bloc, killing Nairobi's variable geometry proposal 5 months after the East African community defied signing the controversial economic partnership agreement with the European Union. It has emerged that Tanzania's unyielding stance could force a continuation of the status quo as the EU is hesitant to push the region to sign a trade deal that threatens its cohesion as a bloc. So, well-placed sources at the European Commission told the East African that the EAC negotiated and concluded a bilateral trade agreement with the EU as a bloc, and it must remain as such. You can follow the story also inside the latest copy of the East African, where you have it on page 3 Also, we cannot try and see what is on the side, but the end of the hustle for Addis Ababa makers, hawkers, and other hustlers being pushed out of the city. This is what is on the outlook on page 23. Also, in Kenya, there is bad loan on the rise. The reality of new accounting standards is hitting home. Follow the story on page 33 of the East African. And desperately seeking speculators on NSE. Their absence is choking liquidity in the market. This is on page 49 of the East African. Also, the magazine, Mission Impossible to the Moon. This is a cover story. Of course, people are observing 50 years since the first man landed up in the moon there. And that is a cover story on the front page of the magazine, a Pollard magazine inside the East African. Uganda's she cranes ready to play ball. They're among top 16 teams in the Netball World Cup. And of course, you know the outcome by now. You can follow the story also on page 12 of the East African this week. Allow me to show you also what we have on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Ebola outbreak in Congo is declared health emergency, and you can see a related picture here. That is someone seeking protection, a health worker in the Democratic Republic of Congo administering Ebola vaccine on Wednesday. The World Health Organization declared the outbreak a global public health emergency as the death toll climbed to at least 1,676. Also in Uganda, they're saying they are not yet declaring that the country is Ebola-free. U.S.-China trade negotiations hit a roadblock over Huawei. Progress towards the U.S.-China trade deal has stalled while the Trump administration determines how to address Beijing's demands that it eases restrictions on Huawei Technologies company. People familiar with the talks said this, and you can follow the story on page 5 of the Wall Street Journal. Also, El Chapo, who led drug empire, gets life sentence. You know that by now. EU to probe Amazon's marketplace conduct is another story there. Also, cyber Netflix US users decline syncing its stock. Video service reports 130,000 fewer domestic subscribers in second quarter. And this is what is on the front page of the East African. Of course, the time zone notwithstanding, this will be your latest. And I want to show you also the editorial cartoons that our cartoonists have drawn for us today as well. This is what we have in the Daily Nation today. According to Victor, Huduma number is voluntary. Another false Jubilee promise. According to Matiang'i, this is what he had said before, but now we see that you will not be able to access services if you don't have a Huduma number. Now that is a government double speaking there. And this is what Victor has actually captured for you inside the Daily Nation today. Also, let's see what is inside the Standard today. And this is what Gado has drawn inside the Standard. And it's all about Duale. And he is the MP now who is eating the public coffers, right? Of course, with the recent revelation about his involvement, or he's remotely connected to the Concordia company. So you can see the Concordia cookies as well. And he is actually munching the public coffers there. This is what Gado has drawn inside the Standard today. Let's move on to see what also Victor has drawn this morning. And this is what is in the People Daily today, according to Stano, MPs, and the Senate. And of course, you know, the supremacy war that is still going on as far as the Senate and the MPs are concerned. And now, yes, they are seeking that advisory opinion from the High Court. They've done this before in 2013. Now they're back again. And we get to see how this will pan out as well. This is inside the People Daily today. So those are your dailies. Make sure you grab a copy of the Daily Nation, a copy of the Business Daily, the Citizen in Tanzania, and also Mwananchi in Tanzania, Daily Monitor in Uganda, if you're there. And that is what we have. That is what we have, of course, today inside the dailies. Right, we just want to move on to our first story this morning about the red alert. And of course, this has been the story that we broke for you on Sunday on that expose. And we had also a reaction there from the Ministry of Health, where the Ministry of Health has confirmed our red alert. The government's independent test on meat samples collected from some supermarkets within Nairobi found they contained unacceptable levels of sulfite. Health Cabinet Secretary Cecily Karuki says the ministry will come down hard on retailers who had fallen afoul of health restrictions against the use of toxic chemicals to preserve meat and other food substances. Our investigative editor Dennis Okari, who pulled back the curtains over this web of deception, now digs in. Just, of course, hours after some meat sections at various retailers were shut down.
NTV Investigates lifted the veil over how supermarkets use chemicals on fresh meat to unsuspecting customers, bringing with it health complications. We independently tested 3 samples and they turned positive. The Ministry of Health today, after independently testing samples collected from a number of supermarkets, backed up our verdict.
Following my direction and instructions to the Office of the Director General this Monday, samples have been collected from across retail outlets. To date, the results indicate that 15% of the samples have fallen short of the expectations, therefore confirming some residues of sulfites in the products that are being sold. Following this, with the famed red alert report, I have further instructed this morning that the facilities whose products are questionable and fall within this 15% be closed forthwith and legal action be taken. Further, I have directed again through the office of the DG that Monday the coming week, both the public officers responsible be convened together to propose to my office necessary interventions that will be sustained and that will be long-term and that will ensure that such occurrences are curtailed before.
Tuskegee Kenyatta Avenue branch was today forced to close down its meat section after the Nairobi Health Department took meat samples that indicated the meat they were selling had excess preservatives, duping unsuspecting buyers into thinking it was fresh meat.
We have realized, as per the test that has just been released by the National Laboratory, is that there are more than 1,000%. For example, the one behind me here has shown 63,000 milligrams per kilogram.
Machakos County Governor, in a statement, also said he had received laboratory tests on meat samples in his county, and the report shows that meat sold at the Naivas supermarket at Gateway Mall in Mavoko, Machakos, had excess levels of sodium metabisulfite. He directed that all meat sections of all Naivas stores in the county be closed immediately. The Nairobi County has closed the meat sections of 6 supermarkets and has constituted a task force to sample the meat sections of 40 others. Key officials from 6 supermarkets will be arraigned in court to face charges of endangering human life. The Office of the Director Public Health, in a statement, confirmed the presence of sodium metabisulfite in meat after analysis from these supermarkets. Tusker Mattress Limited in Buruburu had 44.5 milligrams per kilo in the samples collected. Tusker Mattress Limited Makadara had 512. The Point Naivas Limited in Buruburu had 15,604. Tuskegee Kenyatta Avenue had extreme amounts of 63,326 milligrams per kilo of the preservative. Muthaiga Fine Meat Limited had 8,783, and meat samples from Naivas Gateway Mall had 3,386 milligrams per kilo of the sodium metabisulfite.
I want to take this opportunity again to speak to you, the retailer. I want to speak to you and remind you that indeed the law of the land is going to take its course, and we are coming after you. Right now, we are coming after you.
Naivas this evening released a statement saying it has suspended the sale of red meat across all its stores countrywide, pending the results of independent testing of its meat and assessment of its supply base. The Ministry of Health and Nairobi County Public Health Department, albeit belatedly, says it will seize all raw meats from the affected outlets. They plan to close all the affected outlets and destroy all meat products seized and prosecute outlets in line with the Food, Drugs and Chemical Substance Act, CAP 254. Dennis Okari, NTV.
Many thanks indeed, Dennis Ukari, for that expose, and we hope, yes, some remedial measures will be taken, of course, against these people who are perpetrating this. We want to buckle down to our discussion today here on the Leadership Forum, and we're discussing discerning the seasons and times of your life. You know, life happens in seasons. Ecclesiastes says there is a time for everything. Everything has a season. Good seasons, bad seasons, productive seasons, growth seasons, and seasons of decline, seasons of mourning and grief, seasons of laughter and jubilation, seasons where there are more obstacles than opportunities, often followed by seasons where we can't seem to find time for all the opportunities presented to us. There are seasons of stretching where life seems to carve out something new in our hearts, and we often don't know what that new is until we enter yet another season. Seasons of passionate, growing love, and tough seasons where love is tested. Seasons where you're more of the leader, and the seasons where you're more being led. Seasons of blessings and seasons of wondering where are all those blessings others seem to be experiencing. There are seasons of discovery and seasons where we get to invest what we have discovered in others, all while we keep discovering something new. Of course, as parents, we have lots of seasons. The seasons where we never seem to have a break and you can't get everything done and the kids are driving you crazy some days and you just need one good night's rest. And then seasons where the house seems empty and you long for a cluttered floor of toys again. Seasons. Life, of course, is what we're talking about, and season. And life happens in seasons. What's your current season? That is what we're asking you this morning. It is important to understand seasons occur and to know what season in which you are currently living. When we don't understand this concept of seasons, especially in the bad seasons, we can begin to believe seasons never change. We may stop trusting, stop dreaming, stop taking risks, but life comes in seasons. Seasons do change, sometimes quickly, and sometimes seasons overlap each other. When we find ourselves in a good season, especially an extended good season, we can start to take the season for granted. We may even forget seasons change, sometimes quickly. And so we're not really prepared to take, of course, risks. Take a minute and reflect today. What seasons of life are you currently experiencing, right? Let's just get to discuss this morning, and this is what we're asking you this morning. What seasons of life, or what season of life are you currently experiencing? What season of life are you currently experiencing? Hit us on Twitter. AM Live NTV is our Twitter handle. AM Live NTV is our profile name on Facebook, and 20686 our SMS portal. What season of life are you currently experiencing? Let's get to drive the show together, and of course you commenting and chiming in on our social media platform as well. We want to just get down to it immediately. We have Tufosa Kwaka Sumba, who is the principal of St. Paul's University Nairobi campus. She is on the lectern right now to give us a slice of what she thinks about life and season and times. And just to remind you again on the question of the day, what season of life are you currently experiencing? You know the drill. Go to a social media platform so that we can also get your views as well as you drive the show with us this morning. Tufi, good to see you this morning. You're looking sharp, right, and alert, and we're ready to hear from you as well. You know the drill. You have 5 minutes, beginning now.
Thank you. And good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mary. Nice to see you this morning. And thank you. Yes, we live in seasons, and that's why a wise man asked, "Teach me to number my days, that I may apply wisdom." So I'm waiting to hear the wisdom of Mary, because I think she's done this route before, but this is my wisdom so far. First is just to think about this old saying: you never step in the same river twice. You never step in the same river twice, meaning that even if it's the same old place you always put your feet in, the water that's there, the conditions that are there always change. We live in the times that have been known as VUCA: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Volatile because the speed of change is faster than it has ever been before. Uncertain because we do not know what is changing. No wonder there was a song. I know it was politically connected, but allow me to remind us of that song that says "Vindu vichenjanga," meaning things are changing, and they seem to always be changing. Complex because the nature of our life today is that the number of factors you have to take into consideration at any one time about your personal life, your organizational life, or even our national life are so many that it makes decision making complex. Ambiguous because it's never even clear about what the right decision sometimes is. So what should we do? We live in disruptive times, you know. What are some of the things that I think we should be thinking about? So these are some of my tips this morning. Number one is to always envision change. Always know that change is coming, and always envision it, knowing that it will come anyway. And some of these changes are like Dibal, you mentioned. Some of them are good, you know, the time for laughter, the time for fun, the time for lots of love. But some of the changes that come are actually the changes we never want. For example, death. You know, I think it was just recently when the late Bob Collymore passed away, and some of the quotes we were remembering when he said that for him, he knows that his time is limited, but for the rest of us, we do not know. And the reality is, whereas we all know that time is limited and we do not know how many days we have, sometimes we live like we are here forever. So envision change. Number two is embolden. Embolden your strengths or your assets. Embolden your strengths or your assets. All of us have some strengths. All of us have some assets that help us. And as you're there, also think about your values. Your strengths could be the things that you're good at, or the gifts that you have. For example, the gift of friendship, or the gift of love, or the gift of family. Many times we take these things for granted, or the gift of health. Not too long ago, I was with somebody who's recovering from cancer, and he asked us, "Do you guys do a health check?" You know, and we were around a table and we looked at each other like, actually, do we even go for annual health checks? Number three is enable courage, because change is not easy. Let's not kid ourselves. Even just the change of being in love is never easy. You know, just the fact that you have to change now to be in this new relationship, or the change of happiness. The fact is, you will need some courage. And we know that courage is not because you're not afraid, but courage says that there is something else that is greater. Number four is you'll have to endure the pain of the change. It is painful to change. There will be some things that are not pleasant, things that you need to let go. In every season, there is something you need to let go. Let go of the baggage. Let go of the things that hold you down. Endure that pain and keep on. In any case, pain is good for us because it stretches us, it enables us to see the strengths and the capacity that we have within us. And finally, is to say, enjoy the ride. In every season of life, the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly, there is something to be grateful for. There is something to smile about. There is somebody who will come along, or something that will just bring some sunshine into your life. So for me this morning is to leave you with those 5 E's. envision the change, embolden your strengths, your assets, enable your courage, endure the pain, enjoy the ride. Because remember, we are in the VUCA age, and you never step in the same river twice.
Thank you, Trufosa. We are in the VUCA age, and I like it. Of course, that is the acronym for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous times that we are living in. VUCA age. So how are you also crossing over? Remember, you never step in the same river twice, she says. And of course, remember the 5 E's, right? That is envision change, embolden your strength or assets, enable your courage, endure the pain of the change, enjoy the ride. And for also, I like what she said, in every season, there are things that you have to let go. There are things that you have to let go. It is imperative that you travel light. Are you being weighted down by so many things from your past that it is actually encumbering you to move forward? Can you identify these burdens in your life? Maybe a person you've not forgiven, right? And how is it maybe making you be stuck in a rut as far as moving forward is concerned, because you cannot forgive someone, because of course you're indebted right now and you cannot know how to actually wiggle out of that situation. Maybe you've lost your job, right? But how can you come out from these particular seasons that where you feel your life is stagnant right now? It is critical that sometimes you don't make quick decisions when you're stuck in a very temporal situation. Thank you very much. That is Tufosa Kwakasumba. Now we want to hear from Mary Mukindya. She's an executive coach, and Mary also will tell us her side of discerning, the seasons and times of our lives. What's the season and time, all the time of your life as well? Do you know what particular epoch of time you're in right now, and is that the place that you should be, or maybe you should be ahead? Right, let's hear from her this morning. Mary, you got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Debal. And Karibu, but today, Wale, is women ruling. We are the ones on the mic. Good morning, Kenyans. I took a program many years ago, about 6, 7, 8 years ago, which really transformed my life, and it was called Alabastron, for those who may remember. And there's something I learned in Alabastron, and over time I keep coming back to it, and it was about Kairos and Chronos. The Greeks had 2 concepts of time, and one they called Chronos, which is the regular ordered beat of time, and the other one they called Kairos, which is just the right time, finding the right opportunity to do something. And because the Greeks love to portray things in picture form and using imageries, they created an imagery of Chronos being father of time, and they call the Greek god.
Tilt the mic so that we can actually see. Yes,
sorry,
fantastic.
yes.
That's good.
So they call the Chronos, which is, it comes from chronological order of time, and call that god Chronos, father time. And Kairos, they depicted as a young man who had winged feet and who had shaven, except had a tuft of hair at the front of his head. And it was that if you grabbed him at the right time and got that opportunity, you would really make great opportunity of that and have great riches or health or whatever it needed. And the illustration was that we are governed by 2 things. We see time, some people see time as a chronological one thing following after another. So they come up with statements that, oh, I want to get married when I'm 28, I should have children when I'm 32, I should have a job when I should be retiring at 45, I should have a house in Runda or a flat in Lavington. And you become obsessed and trapped by this concept of time. And when you're able to achieve what you planned and have set for yourself by that time, you get very stressed, you get very frustrated, because you're being governed by a very tough machine that is going through time, plodding and eating up anything on its time, as opposed to saying, what is the right opportunity? And it doesn't matter whether I get rich at 68 or I get as the founder of KFC did, or whether I get the opportunity at 29. And I love the idea of Chronos, because I would like to say that it doesn't matter the age that you are in, it's taking the opportunity at the right time to be able to succeed. Not to feel I have failed because I've done my degree, I'm 29, I haven't found a job. You have no idea what will turn around when you're 30. So my sense of time is, how do you discern? How are you discriminative or selective at understanding what is the right time for me? When should I be doing the things that I ought to be doing and not feel that I'm bound by boundaries and that time has been mapped out for me by tradition, because tradition says I should be called mother of so-and-so when I'm this age, and therefore because I've not found a husband by age 35, I haven't had children, my life is a mess, I'm destroyed, I'm stressed out, I get hypertensive, and I get all the other illnesses that I get. So I would encourage people is, don't feel you've missed the bus. Work out what the opportunity is for you, create your own timeline, and be able to enjoy what you have at the minute. And that will help you be able to understand that we create our own opportunities and we're able to live on our own. The other stage that I find very interesting in terms of leadership is that organizations also have organizational life cycle. They have the beginning stage where they are a startup, then they go through the growth stage, they go through the consolidation stage when they're maturing, and then they have the final stage, adaptive, when they're too controlled, so they want to renew themselves, otherwise they die. I would proposition that we need different type of leaders in organizations at different stages of this life, of the organizational life. I would even proposition to say countries need different type of leaders at different stages of their own maturity as a nation. When you're fighting for independence, you need an authoritative transformational leader. When you're now moving into the independence euphoria and vision matching, you need a different type of future. When you're driving to set the foundation for equity and what will transform the nation, you need a different type of leader. Perhaps you need a transformational and inspiring leader, somebody who actually loves people, who's got a democratic sense of servant leadership. By the time you come to full takeoff of maturity, you need a different type of leader. And my sense of disappointment is that, and the question I would pose to all of us is, have we had the same sort of leader or leaders from independence? Do we have a kind of founder syndrome when the same type of leaders that took us through that authoritative transformational vision setting are still continuing to hold the reins? I know we had a president who came in, and the former President Kibaki, who was very transformational in terms of inspiring and servant leadership to allow people to do. Are we stepping back and starting to own the space and not understanding that at every stage, if we are to transform and have full lift-off of our economies, we need to truly be able to think of the leaderships that we're having. So I would challenge ourselves from the personal, where we say, I'm going to create my own opportunity and use a kairos mentality and not get frustrated that society has not dictated for me the space and the things I should be doing at 50, at 60, that I need to retire at 60 and go to the farm and rest. As an organization, what type of leader do you have? I had a story that one of the banks had a board member for 17 years. Heck to them, but 17 years as a board member? No more comment. So, organization, and as a country leadership level, let's think, what kind of leaders are we having at every stage of our development? And for personality, don't go to Chronos. Father, the great godfather time will eat you up as he ate his sons and daughters. Thank you, Deba.
Thank you so much, Mary. And yes, that's a problem question. In what season are you in? And what sort of time are you following? Is it the Kairos or the Chronos? The Chronos, which is the sequential time, or the Kairos, where there are opportunities, but you're not discerning the opportunities in your life, right? Because one, maybe you're not prepared. So when they come, they actually just, fleet away because you were not prepared for that particular opportunity. It could be a job, it could be, an opportunity to go abroad to study, but you're not prepared. Maybe there are circumstances that were holding you back as well. Do not feel that you have missed the bus. This is what Mary is encouraging you. You can actually set your own time. And while we're living in the times where people or traditions are set for us, right? Are we living in, because time has been mapped out by traditions that they know about this particular, dispensation or maybe this particular epoch of time, this is when you should be doing this is when you should be getting married, this is when you should be having children, this is where maybe you should go and extend your study. So how do you get to actually also maybe recalibrate your clock so that you are in the right season of life? Thank you very much, Mary. We want to hear lastly from Dr. Wala Kinyemi, who is the CEO of Power Talks, and of course is going to talk to us on this particular subject as well. And I can see also your tweets. Shall be reading one or two before we take a short break as well. Wala, you got 5 minutes beginning now.
All right. Good morning, Kenya. It's always a privilege and a joy to be here. Mary, that was phenomenal. And you guys are intimidating me right now. I'm so outnumbered. This is a literal 2-to-1. All right.
We're waiting for one more. Running late.
All right. Well, I think it's a fantastic conversation. And one of the things I have always believed is that it's growth. If the you of today is not embarrassed by some of the things the you of yesterday did, then growth has not happened. If a person who thinks at 40 the way they thought when they were 20 has wasted 20 years of their lives. So I looked at my life, and I saw certain things. But I really love what Mary said. We're not going to put ourselves in a box. But let me tell you where I have come from. I remember there was a season in my life when it was all that was driving me was adventure. So we're doing all sorts of crazy things, in the name of adventure, because that was the season when you want to try new things, you want to do new things. So I sold mangoes. I used to sell leather bags from the northern part of Nigeria. I carried them to the south. I've sold all sorts of things. I was an agent for Motorola. I sold jewelry. My mother said I would sell sand in the desert, at the rate I was going. It was a season of adventure. And then, after that season of adventure, I moved into what I call a season of discovery. That, okay, I've done all these adventures and all that, and I realized, you know what? I've discovered things about myself. I've discovered my strengths. I've discovered some weaknesses. I've discovered that was when I discovered that, you know what? I can't handle an office job because I would sleep by 10 o'clock if you put me to sit on a table, on a desk. That was when I discovered I loved doing different things. But I discovered that my greatest joy was not the one going to sell things, but the one thinking and helping those who are going to sell, develop strategy and things like that, which is what I do today. So that was a season of discovery. And then I moved to a season of focus where, at a stage in my life, I realized I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew with certainty what I did not want. And so I began a process of elimination. I was living in the United States, and I knew that my destiny was in Africa. I remember when I came to Africa, there was a company that had wanted to hire me in the US, and they had sent people here to come and convince me to go. And it's not as if my life was comfortable here at that time. I was struggling. But through a simple process of elimination, I did not know what I wanted. But I knew I did not want to live in America. I knew I did not want to do certain things. And through that process of elimination, I found myself with the very thing that I was made to do. So the season of adventure, season of discovery, the season of focus, and then I now got to a season of legacy where it's not, I'm not trying to prove a point to anybody anymore. You're at a stage where you're trying to, all you want to do is make sure that you are living the life that God sent you here to live. You know, having said that, one may think that, oh, so these seasons come one after the other. No. Because even now, I'm still adventuring on some things. Even now, I'm still making discoveries and all that. But it's like when you see these migratory birds, when they fly in formation, one takes center stage, and after a while, another one takes center stage, and so on and so forth. So, while legacy is at the center stage of my life right now, you know, but there's still adventure somewhere there, there's discovery somewhere there, and so on and so forth. And there's a verse, two verses in the Bible that I really love. One is Ecclesiastes 9 verse 11. It says, I returned and I saw under the sun, the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor riches to men of understanding, nor favor to men of skill, but time and chance happens to them all. And I believe that a person's success in life is directly tied to them being able to identify what time is it in my life right now. Is it the time to make discoveries in an area? And I believe that we can continuously make discoveries. There's another verse in Proverbs chapter 25 verse 2. It says, it's the glory of God to conceal a matter. It is the glory of kings to search it out. And I believe that the more we become researchers, as it were, we don't stop growing in our minds. As long as your mind does not stop growing, your life will not stop advancing. And so it's easy. The easier thing is to sit down and say, oh, I missed a season in my life, yada, yada, yada. You know what? But the best thing to do is to keep searching, keep developing yourself. New things will begin to spring up every day. I round up by saying, I cannot overemphasize the importance of just reading and exposing yourself, exposing your mind. Because I found out that a good book is like fertilizer on the brain. You know, as you continue to read and all that, ideas begin to pop up. I try to read 4 books every month. And ideas begin to pop up, and you're making new discoveries. And as you're making new discoveries, you are advancing. So those are my simple thoughts. Don't stop developing yourself. Mark Twain said, I did not allow my schooling to interfere with my education. And I think that's very, very important. The reward for schooling, you get papers, you get a degree, but the reward for education is the quality of your life. And at the end of the day, people will force you, or the exam for school is set by individuals. The exam for life is set by life. And so, don't stop growing. Thank you very much indeed.
Right. Don't stop growing. That is Dr. Wale there. So what season are you in? Are you in season of adventure, season of discovery, season of focus, season of legacy, where you don't have to prove a thing, right? And of course, I like that quote. A good book is like a fertilizer on the brain. What are you reading, right? Thank you. And of course, you know, there are also fake fertilizers as well. So how will that affect your brain? We want to take a short break right now. When we circle back, we shall hear also from Reverend Callisto Ndede, who's a senior pastor of Nairobi Baptist. And of course, he shall give us his view about, you know, discerning the seasons and times of life. Don't go away. Much more coming up on the other side of the break.
Children bring joy to our lives, but they grow up so fast. Soon it's time for college, and by that time, college fees can be a huge expense. For as little as 3,500 Kenya shillings, Educare combines life insurance with savings for college. Download the SE mobile app, open an account and start saving now. Be life ready.
This Saturday, 20th of July 2019, all savings and credit cooperatives will be celebrating the 97th Annual International Day of Cooperatives, dubbed Ushirika Day. Join us as we celebrate a future in which human development and social justice are priorities and learn how cooperatives contribute to a decent working environment. The theme for this year's event is Corps for Decent Work. His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta will grace the event. Catch it live on NTV from 10 a.m.
The Wicked Edition. After that story aired, kuna watu wanatembea na nzi zao personal zenye wamefuga za kuvet nyama. Mtu anakuja kwa bucha anaachilia nzi bwana mniangalilie kama hiyo quota iko sawa. Ukiachilia nzi zako alafu uone nzi zinafanya
hata zile vitendawili za kwanza na watoto wakifanya nyama washa wasifanye hizo vitu.
Mombasa, mko tayari? Stesheni inayopendwa nchini ya NTV ikishirikiana na gazeti nambari 1 la Daily Nation wanakuletea roadshow ya kukata na shoka kuanzia Alhamisi tarehe 25 mwezi wa Julai. Jumuika nasi tutakapoanza shamra zetu kule Changamwe, Jomvu, Bangladesh, Mikindani, Magongo na kumalizia Port Reitz. Ijumaa tarehe 26 tutazuru kule Kisauni, Kiembeni, Kongowea, Bamburi, Shanzu na kumalizia Mtwapa. Jumamosi tarehe 27 itakuwa kilele ya ziara yetu tukimalizia kule Ganjoni, Majengo, Mwembe Tayari, Tononoka, Chuda na kumalizia Makupa. Tutakuwa na zawadi nyingi sana za kushindaniwa pamoja na burudani tele kutoka kwa wasanii wa NTV. Njoo utangamane nasi, tujuane na pamoja tusherekee Nation Media Group inapofikisha miaka 60. Endelea kutazama NTV kila siku na usome gazeti lako ajuadi la Daily Nation ili tukufahamishe na kukuburudisha.
When I would take a book to read, words really didn't make sense. I had zero comprehension.
It's a specific learning difficulty that mainly affects literacy.
What is really wrong with me? Did I fall when I was a child and hurt my brain?
The reverse letters B and D and P and Q sometimes look the same.
And for my daughter, is it true you see? Can you see? Yeah, sometimes the letters are moving. And in your normal mind, you're thinking, how could letters be moving?
Health Diary in association with KEMSA.
KEMSA has steadily grown from simple storage handling to an innovative, fully fledged healthcare distribution service. Affordable healthcare for all citizens.
Welcome back. You're watching the Leadership Forum here on AM Live. We continue with the conversation, right? Discerning the season and times of your life. What season are you at? We want to hear from you. And this is a question we've been asking you this morning. What season of life are you currently experiencing? What season of life are you currently experiencing? You know the drill. Hit us on Twitter. AM Live NTV is a Twitter handle. AM Live NTV, our profile name on Facebook, and 20686, our SMS portal. Right. We have now our final speaker on the lectern, and this is Reverend Callisto Ndeda, who is a senior pastor of Nairobi Baptist Church, and is going to give us also his view about discerning the seasons and also times of our lives. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much. Right, you got 5 minutes.
Good to see you again here and to be back in this show. Now, time has generally been divided into 4 repetitive seasons. That most of us Africans don't experience the fullness of these seasons But those who live in other countries, especially where they experience winter and the like, do get to experience the full extent of this season. And we talk of spring, summer, fall, and winter. Now, each of these seasons are very, very repetitive. Every year you go through the same thing year after year. Attempts have been made to superimpose these in human life, saying that in life also we do pass through certain kinds of seasons that are almost like the spring, summer, fall, and winter. The only challenge and where this analogy falls flat is the fact that life is not that repetitive. It gives you a chance, and sometimes opportunities that come your way are opportunities that are gone and lost. To recover them is extremely difficult. Unlike winter, where I do know next year again we'll have winter, the following year again we will have summer. It is hard to recover a season that is lost. One renowned thinker of his days wrote some words which are still relevant today, 3,000 years afterwards. He wrote and he said, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Now, this thinker was none other than the renowned King Solomon, who was one of the wisest men of his time. And he looked at everything around his days, and he said there is a specific time, there is a specific season for activities and events under heaven, and I would say in every individual's life. Now, these seasons, one would say, would start right from when a child is conceived in utero within the birth, and then they move on to be born. They go through the toddler years, the terrible twos, and they move on to teenage years. In certain period of these times, people or children are more impressionable than others. And events, activities that they pass through, the lessons that they learn tend to form even their future lives, how they handle matters afterwards. And then they go through the teenage years, exams, breaking voices, pimples, changing body shapes, and move on then into young adulthood, marriage, and soon children crowd their lives and they enter into the everydayness season of living. Beyond that comes midlife crisis, and then we get into senior citizenship and pensioners. Now, around these seasons, there are some things that come to us by virtue of where we are at that time and in that season. A parent of little children has certain responsibilities and obligations that come to them by virtue of where they are at, that you only have these children for a season in your life and in your time. After a certain season, they are passed on, they have become teenagers, and you can't really make the kind of impression that you'd have made upon them when they were younger. So although career pursuits are there, although people want to advance in their lives, it's also important for them that they pay attention to these responsibilities that they have within the family, so that if I am in that season of my life where I have younger children at home, I need to be able to create some room so that I can make impressionable impact on them that will last with them lifelong. And then I have mentioned the season we move on into adulthood, where career becomes extremely important. People begin thinking of the future. People start thinking of investments and thinking of what next. And some of these opportunities, when they come, later on in life, you begin looking back and start regretting some things that you miss, and you start wondering, could it have been that I may have done some things a little different in a certain season of my life? And let me mention, then we do look at the season of midlife crisis that comes for some people between 35 all the way up to age 50, where people begin thinking, rebranding themselves afresh and thinking, is it time for me to get education again? Is it time for me to change my career? What kind of investment do I need to make for my life? Now, some of these makes impact even later on in life. The only problem is that around that time, people also sometimes make lots of mistakes with their lives, because not only do we rebrand ourselves as we fit into midlife crisis, it's also the time when people get a new job, get a new degree, and some people get new spouses because they feel they need to rebrand themselves, feel that they are fresh again. It is therefore important that in each season of our life, we begin to think more, not just of the immediate, but of the future, because some of the decisions that we make around certain season actually affect us even long afterwards. In Africa, it appears that the traditionally, we were definite about transitions from one season to another season. We actually had childhood, young adults, and eldership. But today, we do not seem to have those kind of transitions because of modernity. So people tend to struggle, which season of my life am I in? Because I do not have the kind of transition that I used to have. And hopefully, as individuals, as we make decisions that will impact us in later lives, we make decisions that are guided by wisdom so that we do not end up in error that will damage our lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Kalisto Ndeda, who's a senior pastor at Nairobi Baptist Church. And of course, we tease out some of these salient points they've raised here this morning, and he is reminding you that life is not that repetitive. Of course, there are different seasons of life. He's taken us through some of them. Maybe some of you are battling with the middle life crisis, trying to rebrand yourself. Of course, we have the senior citizenship right now, and you're thinking about how you leave a trust for your children or inheritance for your children, putting your life in order. All that is a season in life, but is also, the society expecting much from the senior citizens as well. Or some of them, they feel that, yes, they've been just shoved aside as if they're just not that resourceful anymore. But they're a rich repository of knowledge and wisdom as far as, of course, learning is concerned that we can actually tap from. And we want to discuss this with our panelists this morning, some of these issues they've raised here. And I can see also your reactions on social media, just to pick one or two that we have on social media and read out some of them. We have this is, who is this? This is Shanky saying time is the difference between people. It's how well we use our time that matters. Also, we do have, I've lost all the tweets that I'd actually put out here. I'll try and lift some of them and read them. There were so many of them. We have also Kennedy Atinda, who's saying that Wale is an inspiration to many young people in Africa at large. He has profoundly influenced my perspective in life. Thumbs up. This is what Kennedy is saying here. And I'll tease out some of them also that I had picked out just much late in the course of the program. But we want to discuss with our panelists, beginning with Tufosa, who was first on the lectern, I should say. And she said, if you may remember, that you never step in the same river twice. Right? And she gave us the 5 E's. Envision change, embolden your strength or assets, enable your courage, endure the pain of the change, and also remember to enjoy the ride. And in every season there are things that you have to leave behind so that you're not carrying baggages as well. So let's just buckle down to business and we talk about, I like the VUCA aspect, very fresh, volatile, uncertain, complex, and you say ambiguous. Yeah, so this is, if we may pick up the Swahili word VUCA and the VUCA, the acronym, I think they really tie in together. Expand more on that.
Okay, so it's not my own original acronym, but it is the current thinking that we are living in a very volatile and a very fast-changing, ambiguous world. Certainly when you look at the technological change and the kind of disruption it's brought in our personal lives, organizational, nationally, and how we just do things, things have changed and how we do them. So you can decide to sit and say, well, nothing is changing and I'm staying exactly the way I am. For example, when M-Pesa was introduced, many people, do you know that statistics show us that the initial people who actually took on M-Pesa were not the learned people. These guys around here refused M-Pesa.
They were skeptical.
You know, they were skeptical. But guess what? Most of the people who are the low economic bracket grabbed it. And they ran with it. But right now, it is actually unheard of for you to even imagine that you can operate without M-Pesa. I mean, it just, why? Because it is part of the change. So I think it's so important that we recognize that the times we live in and what the modern life has been able to give to us has given us so much change, and that change is very fast. We therefore have to position ourselves or reposition ourselves in a place that will put us in a place of winning, but accepting that change. But I think key also, as we look at change, is the issue that there are some things that should never change. I didn't say that, but I just want to say that. Our values, our core, that which we stand for, things like integrity. It doesn't matter what technological change comes. Those should never change.
There should be a constant.
There should be a constant, because that's what keeps you stable. That's what centers you. For example, for me, it would be my faith in God. That should never change. It should never waver. It should change in the sense of increasing, but never decreasing. Yeah, so I think that for me is just that recognition that we are living in a time of change and that change is inevitable. But the rate of change right now is very fast.
It's very fast.
It's very fast.
So the rate of change, and of course also Mary threw us into the chronos and the kairos of time. Yes, the one is sequential, the other one is opportune. We want to know, first of all, then how do I discern this is the opportune time and this is the sequential time that I'm in? Or maybe this is actually the kairos, but we have the opportunity coming through the kairos. Maybe you can actually unpack this for us so that we actually understand this. Because it seems people, yes, they have their life mapped out on the sequential time. But apparently we should not really map out our times on, of course, the way the clock is.
Yeah. I think we can map out, we can plan, because planning is good. Educating yourself, as you said, is good. But to be tied to it, to tie your whole fate to that, and say this is how my life is going to be, is not realistic. So what it is kairos is that you seize an opportunity and you seize a moment. And it does take practice, it does take discernment and understanding, knowing what is around you to seize that opportunity when the time comes. One other ingredient that's really required is courage. You have to have the courage to do it. Most of us are like, we're waiting for permission. Oh, it's not the right time. I'm not the right age to apply for that job.
Yes.
Oh, I don't think I can do it right now. Somebody else should do it. If you're called upon to be a speaker somewhere, take the opportunity.
Take the opportunity.
If you're called, go and be on TV. You may not have everything. Go and learn.
But sometimes you might feel that you're not really ready.
Many of us are never ready.
Yeah, you feel like I cannot. I don't appear well. I am not that telegenic today.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Some people know more than me. I mean, I have a big stomach. I'm happy. I don't have makeup, but I have the confidence I can do it. I'm not the expert on these things. Wale is here, but I am able to articulate. And I might say one good thing, people will understand. So people say, "Why are you always on TV?" It's because I seize the opportunity, and I don't say no, and I'll go and practice till I'm good. And it's important. I had my children. One was born when I'm 38, the other one 42. And I meet people who are saying, "Oh, I'm 39. Oh, I'm this. I'm finished." No, you have to be able to understand. Martin Luther came in at a time when he was he was not even 30. He took the opportunity and he backed on it and pushed about the liberation for black people and being able to do it. It's like when somebody says, something to you and you remember, I could have had a witty response.
Yes.
But 2 minutes later, 3 minutes later, when you're down the staircase, you know, it's called staircase wit. So it's understanding, when do I take the right opportunity and change? And when I bring it to business, I see something very interesting happening. You're talking about the VUCA environment. There's there's another way you can say VUCA with an extra C. There are various variations, which is chaotic. And you find that the whole world today, most of business is being driven by the foundation of technology, of Twitter. Twitter, I think, became 11 years old the other day. Just like M-Pesa changed. Twitter has changed. Foreign policy in America is conducted on Twitter. Wars will be started on Twitter. So you find that even in an organization, technology is driving the whole business, whether you're a bank, you're a manufacturing plant, whatever you are. But you find that the traditional boardroom, the traditional board members, they don't even use this a lot. They can't even turn on their computers and have WhatsApp on the computer, basic things. And when they are actually looking at who to put in the boards, who can understand the new environment, there are very few young people in the boardrooms. So you're saying they're going on the traditional way, you should have so many years experience, but they're not spicing up and saying, maybe we need a 29-year-old in the board. But to explain to the whole board about how the whole foundation of their business is being done through cyber, is being done through all these things so that they can understand. Look at government. The promotion system, the hiring people, even the way they outfit their furnishings of their offices and the red carpet. And many offices with the wood, and everybody's got doors with leather on the doors, and they have this kabaton, kacha. The whole world has changed. People are in open plan, they're in open, glass doors. You're able to communicate easily, you talk easily, but no, they're still in their corridors of hiding. Government is trying to be pulled in the 21st century because they're following the chronos of how time should be. Today, I say that we should have the youngest people in government if you're trying to turn around the economy and have an economy that goes in the 21st century that understands the business is carried out through technology.
We have young legislators also in Parliament right now, and people are crying foul about the sort of debates that we have on the floor of the House, the sort of also reactions we see, especially on social media, when they're reacting to issues that it's a bit juvenile, right? So it is not really about the youthful faces also. It's about, but maturity is not about
it's about values. It's what Trufosa said. It's about values. They don't have the values.
They don't have the values.
They don't have the values.
All right. Okay. So who actually sets, these timelines for our lives? Because who came up with the idea that at the age of 60 I should retire? And why should I abide by that timeline? Because it has been set by a man. Who came up with the time limit by age of 18 I should be having an identity card? And that's when maybe I'm an adult at 21. So I'm presumed to be an adult. And what are the metrics of being an adult? Right? When I turn, it is just but a number. Why?
In fact, real adulthood is 25. That's when you really stop. Yes, when you stop growing.
That's when you...
Yeah, completely medically and everything, yeah.
Okay, so, let's hear from Wale before we continue. Who set all these rules, and should we abide by them?
Can you you expect me to be on television and tell people, don't abide by the rules?
No, we're just not to really abide, but we question who set up these rules. Who said that we should actually retire by 60?
The rules were set by human beings, but I think Jesus made it clear in his approach to the Sabbath, and that is that these things were made for us. But let me put it this way. I think we live in a society where people want to conform. And that urge to conform is so strong. There is what they call FOMO, fear of missing out. So when you talked about Parliament and you talked about young people going there, when they get there, there is a prevailing culture. And they want to conform to that culture. Until we have a few voices who are bold enough to say, and let me tell you how they're going to be bold enough. We need to have people who don't need government to be relevant. Once we have people who don't need government to be relevant, then they will go into Parliament. They will say it as it is, knowing fully well, I don't have to, I want to please this person. The reason democracy has the problems it has in Africa, there are too many people to please, and there are too many people you must not offend.
Yes.
And as long as we have that, these young guys will get into parliament and they will just conform to the culture that is there. The reason I'm spending my life empowering young people is to say you can be relevant without a title. Once we get to that point, then all these, oh, this is how we do it here, then you will have the Martin Luther Kings of Africa. And when you look at it, you said something so profound, Mary. Our founding fathers had a particular mentality. They were young guys.
Yeah.
So isn't it interesting that they were young guys and they continued? I mean, when I was growing up in Nigeria in 1976, Obasanjo was the head of state after Murtala Muhammad was killed. Now, today, Obasanjo and those same cabal are still the people setting the pace for Nigeria. I don't blame them. I blamed the youth who, my constituency is the youth. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing today. We need a radical way of thinking amongst young people. We need a radical, and there are a few pockets of them here and there.
But why should we blame the youth? And it seems the interface maybe is a succession in between, right? That even the Obasanjos never prepared the young leaders or the young people to actually
precisely
take
what I'm
the
saying.
Positions, yeah?
The Obasanjos did not prepare the young leaders, but people like you and I can do that, and we don't need permission to do that. We don't need permission to do that. And that's why do you know how many times I've invited people to join me in my mentoring programs? How many responses have I gotten? None. People come, they say, oh, this is wonderful, this is nice, and they continue their normal business, you know? So we need young people inspiring young people. The truth is, if we're going to leave it to the Obasanjo generation, and there's a curve that a lot of these guys don't see. They go like this, they go up, they are popular and all that. Right now, a lot of these old guys are being ridiculed by the young people. So we have an opportunity for young people and people who are young at heart to begin to instill these values you're talking about. Let's go out. It's not going to come by just being on Leadership Forum. It's going to come by interacting with them and getting our hands dirty with them. I'll round up by saying something, and this is, I think, where a lot of people run away from. When my second son was a baby, I had dressed up in my Nigerian outfit. I was ready to go out, and his mom just brought him out of the bath and put him on the bed. I was so happy. I picked him up, and as I picked him up, the guy peed on me. Now, at that time, what do? Do you throw the baby out? No. And that is where true leadership comes. Some of the people we are going to mentor, we are going to lead, are going to pee on us. They're going to mess us up. But we must see beyond who they are and look at who they can be and give ourselves to them. So the young people I'm blaming are not the young people out there, are the young people who have broken out to a certain level, but who have refused to give back.
Right. Let's hear also from Rev. Callisto. When also the good book says, teach us to number our days, that we may apply wisdom in our lives. Teach us to number our days. What does it essentially mean? Teach us to number our days. Because our days are numbered. So how do we learn how to actually know how to make the calculations and navigate through life so that we're not missing out at some point?
I think one of the challenges is that a lot of us live as if we are going to be here forever. Whether it is in terms of investment or in terms of values, we begin to sustain our lives and conduct our lives in such a manner that shows we are actually here forever. But that's not the truth. The truth is things are changing. Because by virtue of my work, I tend to go with people through those seasons. In the morning, you are rejoicing with someone who's just gotten a baby. You're meeting with a couple who are happy, they're planning their wedding. In the afternoon, you are visiting someone who is unwell in hospital and very sick. At night, you are being called someone has died. And because of this transition, you begin to see that life actually is progressive, and you can't live in such a way that you're thinking, I will be here forever. You need to begin to take your life into account and into consideration, so that by numbering it, which simply means that every day you say, I'm grateful, I have one more day, and I need to plan for this other day. And when you go through that day, you begin to plan for the next year, and you're planning in such a way that you are aware that actually you will not be here permanently. Those who do not do that tend to be caught by surprises. You find either old age comes upon you, you have received retirement letter, you did not think of retiring, and then depression comes. What do I now do? And they say sometimes men, because their job has been so linked, their identity has been so linked up with their job.
Yes.
When that age 65 comes and they find themselves they have retired, majority of them don't finish 2 years before they die, because they did not think ahead. What am I actually going to do after this? So numbering your years, your days actually reflects, I'm in this stage of my life, and I'm in this stage of my life, and I'm not likely to be going on forevermore. I need to begin thinking, how do I adjust myself as the stage progresses on? Allow me just to mention something also that was raised here about nations and countries. The fact that sometimes even nations go through seasons and times. And sometimes a nation may not look at the season in which they are in and miss totally what may be happening. I'm reminded of the French Revolution, when there is a mighty change going on and things are happening, and a queen gets out because people are complaining there is no bread, and she says, why can't they be given cakes? That's a leadership that is totally out of touch with the seasons in which they are in. And true to speak, that even our nations, sometimes you begin to sense that some people are totally out of touch, people who are in leadership, with the season which we are in as a nation, the generation that is coming, the progress that is going on, the technology that has been mentioned. A number of people just seems to have this mindset that what used to happen when we gained independence is what needs to continue happening, not realizing that times and seasons are moving, and therefore they miss, I think, the important element of being able to shape our nation to move towards the direction that it would make an impact in the next generation.
Interesting.
I think there's, I loved what you were saying, Wale, and castigating the youth, because even Martin Luther King and all the young inspirational people who changed, even the founding fathers,
the tomboyers of this country,
the tomboyers and so on, Kimathis and whatever, nobody gave them permission, nobody mentored them. And there's a young man in this region who is making waves, and I started reading his name. I didn't know who he was, what's the issue of him being arrested, and I googled his name, and then I started listening to his music, and I was amazed. Bobby Wine. That is a phenomenon that is happening. And that is what I think you're talking about, when in fact the young people have the courage and say, no, I'm going to change things. And they've been running and winning elections and parties, and that's why he's causing trepidation. And that is why that if you have certain leaderships and certain people who were very good at that initial transformative time, they led you through independence, they had the guts and the fighting. Sometimes they're not the right people to then take you for the next phase that needs a different type of leader. And sometimes it reminds me of what they call the founder syndrome. When you have a business and you start a business, and it grows fantastic and it goes to a certain level, the business gets very big, very complex, that it needs to outgrow its owner. But the founder syndrome, which is a syndrome and is well spoken about, and that's why some companies never break through the ceiling and become huge companies like Kellogg's. All companies started mainly as family businesses, but they outlived the founder and understood that they need to do something different. But the founder decides to hold it hostage. He makes a decision. He hires the people he wants. It's his way or the highway. He's the highest paid, and his ideas must prevail. And that's when you find the business starts to contract, because nobody else has a good opinion, because the founder brought it, he grew it and nurtured it to that certain stage, and very successfully, but he needs a certain type of complete leadership to take it next level. Perhaps people are like that, some of our leaders are like that with nations. You perhaps is something worth thinking through. Yeah.
It's true, it's true.
You can't use an old map to find new routes. A lot of these guys are using old maps, and it's not going to work. And I think one of the greatest dimensions of leadership is knowing when it's time to hand over.
Yes.
it's one of the greatest dimensions because when you identify that point, what happens is that your legacy is secure.
Yes.
You know, Mandela did one term and knew, you know what, it's enough.
We still talk about him until
yes. You know, so those are my thoughts about that. I also believe strongly that what Mary said, we have leaders, we have so many examples, nobody gave them permission. All right? We have a lot of people today waiting to be given permission. It's never going to come. So the sooner we realize that, the better.
The better. I want us to talk about people also who maybe they're struggling with middle life crisis as it is right now. You know, I remember in geography, I think in Form 2, there was a river rejuvenation. That the river will take its course and at some point it will rejuvenate, revive itself, you know. And there are people who are caught up in such a season of life where they are trying to rejuvenate themselves. We had from Reverend Ndede here telling us, yes, that even some of them will get a new spouse. You know, a youthful one, just to make sure that you're feeling young, right? Some of them will go and get, some Nike's high, those sports cars and the bling bling and all. Yeah, and it seems there's something you're really struggling with, yeah. Yeah, and you have all this, booming music in your, and you in your 50s then. People who are stuck there and they're struggling. They need help on how to actually transition. Because I think at the moment of life, it's where you're coming from success, maybe, and you're trying to actually to be significant. How then do we address many constituents who are caught up in such a web where you're feeling like something is happening? A guy is, you have a box going back to the 60s or the 70s. That particular space, let's speak to it. Why are you laughing?
I think it's the word identity.
Identity.
Where does your identity come from? If your identity comes from your title, you are an endangered species. Because the day you are no more in that place, and what made you feel important was the title, and you're finished. If your identity comes from the car you drive, you have a problem. If your identity, so your identity, where your identity comes from is very, very crucial in determining how you're going to live your life. And identity was the cause of the fall of man in the first place. God said, let us make man in our own image. Then when Satan came, he said, if you eat this thing, you'll be like God. But they had already been made like God, in the image of God. So I believe if you don't know who you are, you will answer to who you are called. All right? So it is very important for everybody to settle the issue of identity. Who am I?
Who are you?
All right? And in the journey to discovering who you are, you may not, it's not something you ask, who am I? And it just shows up. No. There's a very simple principle I believe in. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your heart. If you are faithful in obscurity, a door will one day open for you. When Paul was writing letters to his converts, he was just faithfully writing, okay, we have a church, Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, and all that. He was writing letters. Do you think he knew it was going to become scripture? I don't think he knew that. He was faithfully doing what he found to do at that point in time. And I am a strong advocate of faithfulness in obscurity, faithfulness in the little. The problem I have had many times also with some of my young people is that they want to start at the top. If you are faithful,
thank you,
where you are, you will grow.
Thank you. Right. Let's hear from Trophy.
I was laughing because I was imagining these tight jeans and, hugging T-shirt and a box. Did you say a box haircut? And I was trying to look at the ladies' version. Anyway.
What is that?
Tight shoes. And high shoes,
And a weave. High shoes, come on.
No, we didn't say it's bad,
Not bad.
Anyway, I think for me, it's the fact that because life is always changing, there should be a season, there should always be a moment of you repositioning yourself, rebranding yourself, so that I don't have to wait until I'm 50 to wake up and think, oh my God, I need to be new. No, it should be a new, it should be as something that I'm doing every day, so that I'm always remaining relevant to the times in which I'm living in. That's for me number one. But number two is just to recognize that, by the way, I am older than I was. Of course, I feel young, by the way. I still always feel young. I've never felt older. But the fact is that around me, I can already tell that I am older than I was. So in the season that I am in, I must embrace that season. Because part of the problem is I'm trying to resist it. And the more you resist it, the more it shows you that, by the way, I am the only one that is constant. You will never be constant. So embracing it also means that I'm accepting it and saying, this is my season. So let me live full in the season that I am in. You see, a lot of the times, the reason why the tight jeans, the haircut, the car, or the new spouse doesn't work is because those things in themselves have never and will never fulfill you as a person. Fulfillment comes beyond things, the tangible things that we can see. Fulfillment comes from, I like what Wale said, knowing who you are. And then accepting that this is who I was made. And then saying, this is the season I am in, embracing it and living it to the full. There are things I'm able to do now that I was not able to do, say, when my children were just born. There are things that I am able to do now that I wasn't able to do, say, when I was in high school. But I'm in now a different season. So when my children were just born and I had babies, I wouldn't have come here at 6 a.m. No ways. But my kids are now bigger. I can afford to wake up and just say, I won't even see them. I'll see them in the evening. And there's no crisis. And so I'm living in my season. But the problem is where you're living out of your season. There's a problem there. Live in your season. Because when you live out of your season, you begin to fetch for things that you perhaps thought you should have had, going back to the issue of time, or you wish you would have.
But what if circumstances pushed you out of your season?
Like what?
Like maybe, no, just a moment. Like Kimani Maruge, who now, he didn't get an education. But he thinks like, this was really an episode in my life that I really wanted to, but the circumstances then,
but that
I didn't have, then we have him at the age of 90, going to class 1.
But that's wonderful. That's Kairos. That is Kairos, in that what you come back to what Wale said. Always seek to read, educate yourself, learn new experiences. What he was pursuing as a younger person is no longer interesting to him. I was in high-level leadership, my BMW, my car, my, hair, my nails, strong leader, strutting the corporate highway. Today, I have no interest in that at all. I don't know the last time I ever put nail polish or put weave. I love my little box style. I'm not immersed in my image. I'm immersed in serving people because I have grown. I'm now a coach. I love to develop people and help them reach their goals.
So you're in a season of legacy.
I'm in the season of just finding what, gives me a kick and I enjoy it because I did A, B, C, D. I mean, you've put the picture of Kabage Karanja, who was a good friend, on your style.
Yes. We have, if my director may just pick it up from our touch screen.
Yes, and he was a prime example of somebody who's constantly looking to better themselves, educate themselves, became a lawyer at a fantastic age of over 50. And that was Maribu was doing, that he's constantly trying to improve himself and not saying, oh, I'm now 70, I'm 90, I go home because the rule book says on Chronos, I should be retired at home under the tree watching my grandchildren playing. Because that's what society, or we're saying who has told us, is that by this time of age, you should be now in home squared, watching your grandchildren grow and play with them. Who says you can't go back to school and reinvent yourself and star in a movie? That's Kairos. He took the opportunity to learn. He wanted to improve himself. Even the Bible talks about Kairos in Corinthians 11, 13, 11. It talks about knowing the time and being conscious of the time and take opportunity because you may not have the time forever. So be aware of time and take opportunity. So this is what I think Karanja Kabage had.
Right, even at the age of 70, Karanja Kabage was still now even studying for his PhD. Yes.
I was going to say that there is the positive of that midlife crisis. The positive is that you can actually rebrand yourself. You can be able to think of your legacy. What can I do that will greatly contribute towards my future? But there are the negative aspect. The negative aspect, I think, comes because we are grieving. When you hit midlife season, you begin to grieve, and sometimes you grieve the loss of opportunities. Sometimes you grieve the loss of youth.
Yes, it's
youth.
youth.
And when you begin grieving the loss of youth, you begin to reenact.
That you didn't make the most out of it.
Yes, you begin to reenact what you used to be then. Can I be able to replay it back? So in spite of my growing tummy, I want to change myself so that actually I can have a different kind of approach to life. I need younger, engage with younger ladies so that I may reenact my feelings which I used to have when I was much younger. So that grieving actually, when it is not properly handled, tend to lead people into a situation where you get into self-destruct kind of activities that would actually destroy some people.
Is it because maybe people are not really prepared? We're not prepared for such phases of life where, you know, of course, middle crisis will arise. You will definitely have to be there. But you find yourself, you're there, you're not really prepared. So there's a sense of grieving that you have. Maybe the executive coaches like Mary now can tell us, because we have people saying, this is a halftime. If you read is it Bob Buford's book, Halftime?
Yes.
Yeah, that it's like life is like a football match. Yes. There is a first half and there's a second half. In between, you'll have, you know, a break, and then you'll blow the whistle. And for most people now in the second half is where now it is do or die, because now, you know, my time is limited and I want to make the most out of it, right? But are we really prepared for the second half bit of life? Because it seems, youthful will be all partying all there, then responsibility comes in. You find also your parents are aging. Now you have responsibility. Things are they're being thrown up every which way.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Many of us, even myself at times, and I said I went through Alabastron, and I went through the church. I got saved before I got saved, and I went through Alabastron, and all these things were things of renewing myself and understanding. And I think it comes through. The core thing is that, are people really clear on their purpose? What is it that we're here about? And if you don't find it in something that is lasting, that gives you that purpose of knowing who you are and what your value is, and not in things, not in your body image, in your body shape, in your cars, then you will always digress, because you'll fall back on what society considers as what you should be and have at those stages. But if you're very clear on who you are, because you're anchored on somebody else who's, you know, the Almighty, and then that allows you to continually find purpose in what you do during this age, during that age. And that was what I find difficult. People are not very clear, and it's amazing, on who they are and their purpose. And that's what coaches sometimes work with people to say, okay, what's your goal? Oh, I'm not sure. What do you want to do? I don't know, I'm not clear. You help them discover and tap into. And then that's when you say, okay, if this is who I am, this is my purpose, and what do I want to do? What should be my goal be? But there's a whole gap, a whole missing block that people are not helped on a personal level, because you can go to church or you can go and have the worship that you have, but you're still left empty. And that's why I love things like e-groups in churches. The programs they take you through, whether it's, you know, Mizizi or whatever, because they help you really tap into yourself and understand better. But when you find a society and a people who don't have purpose, then you don't even know where you're going, and any road will take you there, and then you end up with these issues.
Of course, also the human resource fraternity, they're celebrating, or they're observing the Human Resource Month this month of July, from 1st to the 30th. Do you think, from the organizations, because we have all these people maybe who are, it's a natural attrition, I should say, you're retiring, but you're not prepared for the after workplace. So you wake up, you have that blanket victory in the morning, but you have a long day because you were not prepared not to go to the office, and you struggle. And many of them retire at 60, and they're very youthful, they're very energetic, they go just rocking the chair at home, you know, just reading the newspaper. They can be so resourceful. Have we also failed maybe as a company, so to speak, where, you know, we are supposed to be preparing these people for retirement. So you just give them wheelbarrow and a spade to go to be the farmer. I mean, and that sort of dissonance can actually create all this depression, Wale.
I remember working with a particular organization, and they had these people that were going to go home. And so I just asked them, I said, so you guys are going to get some money. What are you going to do? A lot of the men said they were going to marry new wives.
Buy new.
You know?
But there's a provision in the Constitution nowadays also for polygamy.
You know, let me tell you something I learned from my father. And I saw my father retire and start again 7 times or so. I saw him rise as a medical doctor to the chief medical officer. Resign. I saw him do different things. And one of the things I've learned is this: visionaries never retire, they refire. Mm-hmm. And for you to be able to do that, it goes back to what I said. You see, if you don't know what is possible, you will settle for what is available. Mm-hmm. It is by reading, by exposing yourself, by having such great friendships. Mm-hmm. You hear, you are inspired. Mm-hmm. It's, and then it gives you possibilities. You see, what we call opportunity. Opportunities, I call them free-for-all situations, waiting for who has the capacity to grab it. Mm-hmm. There's a word called leverage. I don't know if there's a book called The Mystery of Capital.
Yes.
Remember that book?
Yeah, Hernando de Soto.
De Soto.
Love it. Yes.
And one of the points he basically brings out there is that Africa and poor countries are the way they are because they have not been able to leverage their assets for capital.
Absolutely.
All right? Yeah. A lot of people, and it goes back to what you're saying about coaching, a lot of people have such greatness inside them, but they don't know how to leverage it because society has said at 60, you retire. And I think people like you should be the highest paid people in the world. Amen. No, sincerely. And then make me your apprentice. No, I'm serious because
teachers of every
people don't know what to do. And if they don't know what to do, society has painted a picture for them. So at 60, they retire. Yes, you say they will go and read newspapers. What do you want them to do? They don't know better. People ask me, and I always tell them, I said, I will continue to reinvent myself until whenever, and the way I've encouraged myself, I said, what will your age be if you didn't know your age? It's 27. So I'm 27 permanently. I'm permanently 27. My son is about to get older than me right now, but it's okay, I'm 27. And I think it's also important, when we have that exposure and we're expanding our minds, the truth is this. Remember, everybody reads a map, but some people draw the map. Everybody wants to be fashionable. Some people determine what fashion will be. I don't want to be that guy who wants to be fashionable. I want to be the guy who determines what my fashion is going to be because it's comfortable for me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Rev Callisto, also as we're giving our headline thoughts, just briefly.
Yes, I think I just wanted to mention the fact that the person who is retiring doesn't know what to do. I had a friend who, after they retired, they actually would dress up every morning, leave their house and come to town, and they would sit on the benches, the city council benches, because they do not know what to do. And then in the evening, they go back home until finally they started asking, what am I doing with myself? And then they discovered I can actually do something in the city instead of just going. So they started some business within the city. Now, that is because people are not prepared. But I'm so glad to hear that a number of organizations now are beginning, including government organizations. Before people leave, they try to get people who are about to retire, and then they take them through a process of preparation so that they are able to face the future, I think, with more knowledge rather than just going in unprepared.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's hear from, lastly, briefly, your closing remarks.
Yeah, my closing remarks is that I think I had this quote that if you're not dead, God's not through with you yet. So long as you're alive, even even if you're at 90. You know, the question about the 90 is because we are wondering, what is he going to do with that education? Because in our minds, we think that education or going to school is for you to do something, to get a job. But we need to see beyond that, to say that this is for me. It's for me to develop, not because I need to do something with it, but because I need to be renewed. But the hope here is that if you're not dead, God's not through with you yet.
Right. If you're not dead, God is not yet through with you. Right. Let's hear from
I think I'll pick up what Wale said.
Briefly.
I think I'm the poster child of reinventing myself. I had children at 38 and 42 years old. I have a new career as a leadership coach at 60. I think I'm the oldest on this bench, and people say, how do I keep it? I'm training, I'm speaking, I have no pension, and I love it. I'm back to living, you know, hand-to-mouth. I don't have a pension. I'm redoing my investments. I'm trying to buy a house. So, I really tell people that there's opportunity at every turn. Just have the courage. What I've found in my working with women and professionals is the courage. Encourage them, and you'll achieve anything you want.
Right, thank you. Finally, Wale.
You know, my definition of legacy is how you want to be defined when you are no more there to defend yourself. Winston Churchill said that I know history will be kind to me. And they said, how? He said, because I intend to write my own history. Every single person has an opportunity every day they wake up to write another chapter in their own history.
Thank you very much. I think it has been a very encouraging, quite a very honest, engaging conversation, compelling, also wisdom for me. We really appreciate it. I know many of you are encouraged this morning. I know we can go on and on, but I know someone has been touched this morning. At least you can see where you are at. Pick up a season and try and reflect on your life. Where are you at? Are you stuck in a rut because someone told you that you're old and you're rocking your chair watching this particular show? Now it's something that you need to do. Yeah, pick up now something that you need to run with and start doing and being actively involved in changing our society. And I know it is TD Jakes who said, don't make permanent decisions out of very temporal situations as well. Maybe that season that you're in is very temporal, so don't be stuck in there. Right, as we're winding up, let me just read some of the tweets that we have here. We have Kibet saying, this is a fantastic topic, especially to young generation who approach life with get-rich-quick perspective. Many take vulnerable short cuts when they miss the opportunity. That is what Kibet Benjamin is saying there. We have also Sheila saying, these conversations are powerful. We need to drive these ideas among Africa's youth that are the leaders of tomorrow. John Githanga saying, I'm seeing a sad reality that we live at a time when good leadership in Kenya is quickly becoming a virtue of the past. Now we have so-called political and religious leaders who are scrambling for that title for their own benefit rather than for the sake of the people. Also, we have Oduho saying, young people always revolt against oppression. History is evidence. Currently, globally, either the stage is being set, or the show is on. In Africa, the stage is set and the show is beginning. Most are only but late to the show. We have also, this is Sheila. She has good ideas as well. Sheila Cheng. She says, change is an idea whose time has come, not just for Kenya, but for Africa. Let's have these conversations in the streets, classrooms, and boardrooms. That's where we need these changes as well. Thank you for your contribution as well on social media, and thank you to the panelists for that very compelling, insightful conversation this morning. Really do appreciate you also driving the show with us. That was a question of the day. What season of life are you currently experiencing? What season of life are you currently experiencing? So just have a reflective moment today, a pause giver, and of course, take action on your life. Thank you.